I'm on my way to my Father, but I will return.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I further bear witness that Allah came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, and that he raised the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and has placed him on the throne of power over the universe. And I further bear witness that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is his Christ, the Lamb of God, through whom Allah is establishing his eternal kingdom. Assalamu alaikum. I am Karriem Allah, and thank you for taking time to view this very important message. In this part 6 of the series on the Messianic prophecies, we want to continue our discussion on the domestic life, specifically why Master Fard Muhammad required the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan to enter polygamy. The term domestic life is a concept arising from Surah 33 of the Holy Quran, which deals with the marriages of Prophet Muhammad. And as we said in previous messages, Prophet Muhammad, as well as the other major prophets, prefigure the Messiah. That is, their lives, aspects of their lives prefigure his life. Well, one of the most important questions that can be asked is, how could Master Fard Muhammad have required the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan to enter polygamy when he was not physically present with them? This is to say that for most people, if we do not see the person with our eyes physically interacting with us or with someone else, then we do not consider that person physically present. That makes sense. Well, as a result, our focus is on the one whom we can see. And this is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was evil spoken of for having wives, although he declared that he was ordered by Allah to do that. Well, they didn't see Master Fard Muhammad with him. Equally important, disregard for the unseen is why messengers of Allah were rejected by the people to whom they were sent. In the Holy Quran, it states, "When we sent to them two, they rejected them both. Then we strengthened them with a third, so they said, 'Surely we are sent to you.' They said, the people, 'You are mortals like ourselves, nor has the Beneficent revealed anything. You only lie.' And they said," the three apostles, "Our Lord knows that we are surely sent to you, and our duty is only a clear deliverance of the message." Well, the Bible and the Holy Quran, both books, establish Allah's pattern of raising divine messengers from among the people to whom he intends to convey his will, warning, and guidance. He does this for several reasons. One reason is that divine messengers serve as proof of Allah's power to purify the people. They serve as examples that the people can become what Allah desires them to become. In other words, messengers of a God eliminate excuses as to why we cannot follow Allah's path. Nevertheless, the people reject his messengers because they disbelieve in the unseen realities that demonstrate the presence of Allah. Jesus of 2,000 years ago faced this same problem, according to the New Testament. He represented the Father, whom no one physically saw. He states, Jesus, "I can of mine own self do nothing. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is just, because I seek not my own will, but the will of the Father which hath sent me. Well, even Jesus' disciples struggled with belief of the reality of the Father, again, who was not seen. Present, but not seen. In other words, unseen. It states, Philip saith unto him, Jesus, show us the Father, and it sufficeth us. Jesus saith unto him, have I been so long time with you, and yet hast thou not known me, Philip? He that hath seen me hath seen the Father. And how sayest thou then, show us the Father? Believest thou not that I am in the Father, and the Father in me? The words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me. He doeth the works. Well, Jesus makes a distinction between he and the Father. He declares that he is subordinate to the Father, even while declaring that he is one with the Father. He is an instrument of the Father's will. Well, how did Jesus become an instrument of the Father? What did the Father do to Jesus to make him an instrument? The answers to these questions bear on the following words from Jesus, again in the Bible. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Well, we cannot rightfully presume that Jesus is saying that the Father is an invisible or formless spirit. Unfortunately, this is what most people assume and most people believe. Why then did Jesus make a distinction between the Father and God in these verses? Jesus said the same thing to the Jews that he said to Philip. I and my Father are one. Then the Jews took up stones again to stone him. Jesus answered them, many good works have I showed you from my Father. For which of those works do ye stone me? The Jews answered, saying, for a good work we stone thee not, but for blasphemy, and because that thou, being a man, makest thyself God. Jesus answered them, is it not written in your law? I said, ye are all gods. And as we know, that comes from Psalms, where the remainder of that verse is children of the Most High God. Well, if we are all gods, children of the Most High God, but yet are not spirits floating in space, then why should the Father, the Most High God, be a spirit floating in space? Well, clearly Jesus had another definition of spirit, and his knowledge of what spirit meant is what made him one with the Father. Now, there's too much proof that Master Farrakhan Muhammad exists for anyone to doubt his existence, but we're going to cover a little bit of this history for those who may be new to Master Farrakhan Muhammad. Well, after making his appearance among the black people of North America, particularly those living in Detroit during the 1930s, the early 1930s, Master Farrakhan Muhammad personally taught the Honorable Elijah Muhammad from 1931 to 1934. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has made that clear throughout all of his teachings. Master Farrakhan Muhammad departed in 1934, leaving the Honorable Elijah Muhammad with the mission of the resurrection of the black people of America specifically, but the original people of the Western Hemisphere in general. Now, in previous messages, we provided knowledge about Master Farrakhan Muhammad's interaction with President Herbert Hoover during the early 1930s. There are also records of his involvement with government officials in Detroit and Chicago. Well, Master Fard Muhammad, of course, is perhaps the most mystic figure in the history of the lost foundation of Islam, because he was truly known only to one man from among us, that is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who represented Master Fard Muhammad to the world as the supreme being, God in person. He taught us about Master Fard Muhammad. Well, generally the presence of the lost foundation of Islam, especially through the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan over this last 89 years, nearing 90 years combined, is proof that Master Fard Muhammad exists. This speaks to the cliche that we judge a tree by the fruit it bears. This is what Jesus impressed upon Philip, because he knew Philip was still bewildered by the concept of his oneness with the Father. So Jesus states, "Believe me that I am in the Father in me, or else believe me for the work's sake." Well, of course, if we do not know the messianic prophecies, then we will not know the works that the Messiah is expected to do when he appears in the last days, which was not 2,000 years ago. So ignorance regarding this reality, that is the messianic prophecies, is the greatest challenge today. People speak of the Messiah, but they don't know the messianic prophecies. They know, of course, what they were taught in church and elsewhere by the synagogue of Satan through the pastors and preachers that represent the synagogue of Satan. Well, this is why we're teaching this series on the messianic prophecies. Let me just clarify something for those who may get upset that I said that the preachers who preach Christianity represent the synagogue of Satan. Well, explore who taught you what you know about the Bible, and whose schools you learned it from, and whose forebears you got it from. Until the coming of Master Fard Muhammad, the only game in town was the synagogue of Satan. So the question of Master Fard Muhammad's existence is streamlined into questions regarding his whereabouts today and his ability to guide and instruct others from wherever he is. Of course, the Supreme Being can be wherever he wants to be. And because he is the Supreme Being, he can keep all other beings from knowing his exact whereabouts. In the Holy Quran, it states about Allah, "Vision comprehends him not, and he comprehends all vision, and he is the subtle, the aware." So just because the FBI, the CIA, and other so-called intelligence agencies, who are really staffed by dumb devils, cannot locate the person of Master Fard Muhammad, does not mean that he is not alive and present. His presence is felt and established throughout the universe, as indicated in the Quranic verses that we just read. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad states, "The mother plane in her work is a display of the power of the mightiest God, Master Fard Muhammad, to whom praises are due forever. Master Fard Muhammad, to whom praises are due forever, is the wisest and best knower. He is the mightiest of them all." Now, a little later in this message, we intend to touch on aspects of what makes Master Fard Muhammad the wisest of all. Well, the mother plane is called a UFO by the scientists of this world of the synagogue of Satan. And UFO means unidentified flying object, a term that applies to the extraterrestrial spacecraft or to extraterrestrial spacecraft. Extraterrestrial means occurring or existing beyond the Earth's atmosphere. Well, this term does in fact apply to the mother plane, although the mother plane was built right here on Earth, according to what we learned from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad described aspects of how Master Fard Muhammad built the mother plane. He states, "The present wheel-shaped plane known as the mother of planes is 1/2 mile of a half mile and is the largest mechanical man-made object in the sky. It is a small human planet made for the purpose of destroying the present world of the enemies of Allah. The cost to build such a plane is staggering. The finest brains were used to build it. It is capable of staying in outer space 6 to 12 months at a time without coming into the Earth's gravity. It carries 1,500 bombing planes with the most deadliest explosives, the type used to bring up mountains on the Earth." Well, if the person of Master Fard Muhammad is on the mother plane, then the U.S. government has no way of knowing it, since the mother plane is beyond the reach and comprehension of the governments of this world. So the power of Master Fard Muhammad as the supreme being and the incomprehensible nature of the mother plane settles the question of the whereabouts of Master Fard Muhammad. He's anywhere and he's everywhere. Now let's consider the unseen. But before we go into this, I just want to state there's a lot of distractions and things to do in this world, particularly in the United States. So if you are not up to date on the presence of the mother plane in the UFOs, and there's much to be studied for you from scientists of high caliber, then you're just at fault. So make sure you delve into that area of the reality of what's happening before you begin to doubt the presence of Master Fard Muhammad. And this goes for Islamic scholars and also for Christian pastors. There's much you don't know that you got to catch up on. And the mother plane is one of those subjects. Well, what is the unseen? In a simplistic view, the unseen is the future, whether that future is the next hour, day, month, or year. In the Holy Quran, Allah informs us how we should handle the future. And Allah, of course, knows the future and all therein. This is affirmed in the Holy Quran. It states, "Surely Allah is He with whom is the knowledge of the hour, and He sends down the rain, and He knows what is in the wombs, and no one knows what he will earn on the morrow, and no one knows in what land he shall die. Surely Allah is knowing, aware." So these verses address the vastness of unseen realities. Further in the Holy Quran, it states, "And He, Allah, it is who created the heavens and the earth with truth. And when He says be, it is. His word is the truth, and His is the kingdom on the day when the trumpet is blown. The knower of the unseen and the seen, and He is the wise, the aware." Again, here we are informed that creation has seen and unseen realities. The seen realities are what we experience through our sensory organs, our eyes, our ears, our tongues, our nose, and hands. The unseen is the reality behind the world that we engage through our senses. Now, each one of us possesses unseen realities. How so? Well, for example, The life we have is dependent on the heart that pumps the oxygen through our bodies. Yet we do not see our hearts. I can't look down and see my heart. I know it's in action because I can feel it, although I cannot see it. Even greater than our inability to witness our hearts in action is our inability to see our minds. Brain, which we also cannot see, is not mind. The brain is the organ through which mind is generated. When we close our eyes, we know that we exist. You can do that right now. You can feel your existence, but you cannot physically touch your existence. Can you? Or can I? So we are not our bodies. Therefore, each of us is an unseen reality, with the body serving as our true home. Now, Allah in the Holy Quran, He requires respect for the unseen. He states, I, Allah, am the best knower. This book, there is no doubt in it, is a guide to those who keep their duty, who believe in the unseen and keep up prayer and spend out of what we have given them. Well, why is belief in the unseen necessary? Why is it one of the principles of belief or faith in Allah? Well, belief in the unseen enables us to attain the highest respect for life. In the world of the synagogue of Satan, we have been taught the mantra that seeing is believing, and that out of sight is out of mind. People say that all the time. I only see I only believe what I see. Why you don't? I just said you don't see your heart and mind or brain, but you believe they exist. So again, we just say things without sometimes thinking about the reality of who we are. Well, the foolish cliches, such as those, are drivers behind the evils of self-abuse and self-destruction plaguing our communities and nations. Such foolish concepts, seeing is believing again, influences us to cherish the desires and passions of the flesh above that which sustains and advances life. How so? Well, because some people do not see their lungs. They have little respect for what the lungs do to sustain life. And since tobacco pacifies the nerves, then it's easy to destroy one's lungs in order to enjoy the pleasures that come from smoking cigarettes, cigars, etc. And the same holds true for alcoholic beverages. The liver, which is unseen, is disrespected if we destroy it by addiction to alcoholic beverages. So as is customary, we're going to reference the supreme wisdom, which is basically the wisdom from the supreme being, Master Farrakhan Muhammad. Now, those of us who have entered the covenant relationship with Master Farrakhan Muhammad by becoming registered Muslims are required to study the supreme wisdom until it is ingrained in our hearts. And this helps guide us into taking on the mind of Master Farrakhan Muhammad. Now, the capability of the mind to travel beyond the body that houses it is established in the supreme wisdom. In a lesson called The Problem Book, Master Farrakhan Muhammad states regarding this, again in the supreme wisdom. The uncle of Mr. W.D. Farr lives in the wilderness of North America, surrounded and robbed completely by the caveman. Therefore, he has no knowledge of his own nor anyone else's, but his mind travels 24 billion miles per second, which is considered the average speed of thought per second. How many round trips will he make in 10 seconds to the far planet platoon? Well, according to this problem, we are in fact our minds. If your mind is, he says it clearly, how many round trips can he make with his mind traveling at 24 billion miles per second? So the question of how many round trips that can be made in 10 seconds bears on our ability to control and direct our minds. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has taught us how to do this. Nevertheless, scientists refer to these tasks as teleportation, telepathy. Well, before the disbelieving parts of our minds kick, or some people's minds kick into action, let us consider how much knowledge this world has compared to the knowledge that Master Farrakhan Muhammad has. So let's consider this from the supreme wisdom. Master Farrakhan Muhammad, during the time he was personally teaching the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, asked the Honorable Elijah Muhammad the following question from the supreme wisdom. Why did we run Yaqub and his maid devil from the root of civilization over the hot desert into the caves of West Asia, as they now call it, Europe? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad's answer, in part, is because they started making trouble among the righteous people, telling lies. They accused the righteous people, causing them to fight and kill one another. We ran the devils over the Arabian desert. We took from them everything except the language and made him walk every step of the way. It was 2,200 miles. He went savage and lived in the caves of Europe. U means hillsides, and rope is the rope to bind in. It was 6,019 years ago. Musa came 2,000 years later and taught him how to live a respectful life, how to build a home for himself, and some of the technology that Yaqub taught him, which was devilishment, telling lies, stealing, and how to master the original man. Now, historians and paleontologists, as well as other scientists, have affirmed that people dwelled in caves in Europe. Again, you can research this for yourself. Although they claim this happened millions of years ago, this is only speculation or just an intentional lie. The Caucasian people's exile to Europe occurred in 4000 BC, a little more than 6,000 years ago at the time they were made, or shortly after they were made, and returned to Arabia among the original people. Now, returning to the problem book, we learn how much knowledge Musa, or Moses, taught the Caucasian people in liberating them from the caves of Europe. It states, the public library of Cairo contains 3,700,000 books, of which 60,000 treat exclusively of mathematics, astronomy, and language and other sciences of life. Mr. Moses brought one book of each to civilize the devil 4000 BC. Now, Mr. Sharif wants to know from every one of you students to tell us, how much knowledge does the devil possess, comparing him with the knowledge of the original man when he only had one book, while the original man had 59,999. What would be the weight of knowledge in ratio proportion form of original against the devil? Well, it would be as darkness is to light. And this is why the Bible, in particular, refers to this world as darkness and hell. And those who live in the world of the synagogue of Satan are referred to right in this Bible as devils, foul spirits, and unclean and hateful birds. So this question regarding the weight of knowledge between the devil and the original man also points to the mental power of each, original against devil, or the original black man against the Caucasian people. Bring it down home. So this is why the nations of the earth cannot contend with the mother plane. And this is also why the synagogue of Satan and the devils they control have not been able to stop the mission of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. No matter what you do, you don't know enough and have enough to stop Master Farad Muhammad. You are like Lilliputians or munchkins running around the feet of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. And that too, in another way, is stated in the Bible, where God will make and is making you a footstool for his feet. Now, belief in the unseen requires knowledge and faith. Unfortunately, some of those who claim to believe in Allah's messengers begin to doubt their divinity and even turn against them. Moses experienced this. In the Holy Quran, it states, "O you who believe, be not like those who malign Moses, but Allah cleared him of what they said, and he was worthy of regard with Allah." So those who believed in Allah and Moses turned on Moses. Well, this verse does not refer to the historical Moses. We already described what he did. It refers to the prophetic Moses who is raised to liberate the true children of Israel, the black people of the Western Hemisphere, from their captors and oppressors. Hence, this verse applies to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in one sense, and to the Honorable Louis Farrakhan in another sense. Now, as we know, Moses was maligned by many of those who once believed in him because of his domestic life. It's clearly stated in the Bible. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was also maligned by those who claimed to believe in him because of his domestic life. Now, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan delivered a pivotal lecture in September 1987 in Phoenix, Arizona. And born of this lecture came 21 study guides. I have one here. These study guides are under the theme self-improvement, the basis for community development. Now, study guide 18 is rising above emotion into the thinking of God, which was issued in March 1991, with the aim of helping us to properly perceive the domestic life of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan states in his letter introducing this particular study guide, because it was customary that he had letters that introduced the rest of the ones too. That again, 21 study guides that he issued over a 23-year period. He states, "The devastating effect on the domestic life of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is at the root of the fall of his family and the fall of the nation of Islam. In a situation like this, it was natural for his family and followers to focus on the pain of Sister Clara Muhammad and ourselves. However, we allowed ourselves to succumb to the pain of the moment, a pain so overwhelming that it would not permit us to ask the question, why did Allah, God, order his servant to enter this aspect, wives, of his domestic life?" Excuse me. Again, the Holy Quran relates circumstances in which the people doubted the correctness of the actions of their divine messengers. It states, Rather, you wish to put questions to your messenger, as Moses was questioned before. And whoever adopts disbelief instead of faith, he indeed has lost the right direction of the way. Now, doubt and grief usually accompany bad or tragic situations. When we experience good fortune, we rarely question the decisions that we make or the decisions that anybody else made that brought us into good fortune. However, when misfortune grips us, then we begin to question our decisions as well as the ones whom their decisions affected us. And misfortune can bring out the worst in people, causing them to fall into hypocrisy. Again, we have the scriptures as proof of that. And we have the history of the Nation of Islam, the lost found Nation of Islam, as proof. Now, in this book that Allah blessed me to write, this is part 1 of 3 parts, titled Obeying Divine Commands Toward Understanding the Polygamous Marriage of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, the Messiah. In this book, we raise questions regarding the Messiah's relationship to Allah. We use the title Messiah throughout the response to this question because the aim is for us to hone in on the function of the Messiah. But indeed, we're referring to the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. Now, one question in this book is this one. How does the Messiah know that the divine command to take a specific wife, or a specific woman as a wife is from Allah? How does Allah reveal this to his Messiah? Well, if you're responsible for defending the domestic life, then you would need to consider this question, wouldn't you? Again, if the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was ordered to take wives from Master Fard Muhammad and he's nowhere around, then wouldn't a hypocrite and a devil question that? How could he have been ordered from Master Fard Muhammad if Master Fard Muhammad is not physically in his presence? So again, that's a gateway for the synagogue of Satan to blast many people off their high horse who think they understand the domestic life. Let's continue with the response we have in this book. The knowledge that a person has received a divine message or mandate from Allah rests with that person. Therefore, the Messiah comes to Allah and stands before him alone. No one can validate that relationship but Allah, which he does by bringing his Messiah into a greater knowledge of his assignment and into a greater understanding of their relationship. In the Holy Quran, it states, when the hypocrites come to thee, meaning God's messenger, they say, we bear witness that thou art indeed Allah's messenger. And Allah knows thou art indeed his messenger. And Allah bears witness that the hypocrites are surely liars. It also states in the Holy Quran, but Allah bears witness by that which he has revealed to thee, that he has revealed it with his knowledge. And the angels also bear witness. And Allah is sufficient as a witness. Now, Allah brings the Messiah through an arduous journey marked by self-discovery, self-realization, and self-acceptance. These processes are evolutionary. However, Allah brings him to the point where he is able to accept everything associated or involved with his divine mission. Well, where were the believers in the Messiah during the early stages of his mission? That's a good question. They were not yet formed. I don't think anybody can argue with that. Allah, through the work of the Messiah, brings forth those destined to believe in him. What does this mean? It means that the Messiah's divine commission is not affirmed, confirmed, or sanctioned by those who believe in him. Belief in Allah's Messiah and belief in Allah is to each of our benefits. The Messiah is beyond them at all times because his divine commission preceded their acceptance of him. He is responsible for bringing them, meaning the believers and others, into the light of Allah. And this is indicated throughout the Holy Quran. The transformation of the lives of people from disbelief to belief and from ignorance to enlightenment through the Messiah's work makes them witness bearers of his work in divinity. At least it should. The Messiah understands how Allah manifests what he desires him to do. He has grown to recognize and interpret Allah's will in ways that most people cannot fathom. He is one, meaning the Messiah, with Allah in the truest sense of this concept. Therefore, he understands the value and necessity of Allah's mandate regarding his domestic life, as well as all other requirements that Allah imposes on him. He knows, the Messiah, that these divine commands are absolutely from Allah. This means that the divine command to take wives is not given in a vacuum. Not only has Allah developed the Messiah's mind to know when he is communicating with him, but also the Messiah is deeply affected by the internal or mental force or pressure associated with the divine directives given to him. Again, we have heard from the Honorable Louis Farrakhan that in a private set with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said Allah forced him to take wives or a specific wife. Well, this goes into how Allah forces a man. The Messiah's overall desire to please Allah, combined with this internal force, fixes him, thereby ensuring that the divine commands are executed despite the difficulties associated with these mandates. Now, the Holy Quran describes a means through which Allah communicates to his divine servants. It states, "And it is not vouchsafed to a mortal that Allah should speak to him except by revelation or from behind a veil, or by sending a messenger and revealing by his permission what he pleases. Surely Allah is high, wise." Now, in place of the word vouchsafe, other English translations of the Holy Quran use the phrase, "it is not fitting," or "it is not given." Well, on face value, this verse may imply that man is not worthy for Allah to speak directly to him. However, we have already proven that Allah, the originator, the supreme being, is not an ethereal being floating in space. Now, revelation in this verse is divine wisdom that we have not known. That's what revelation is. If you knew it, it wouldn't be revelation. But the aim of revelation is to guide us into Allah's favor. This is Allah's interest. So Allah does not partake of trifling or small inconsequential talk. He deals with revelation when he deals with his messengers. So the supreme wisdom from Master Farrakhan Muhammad affirms this. This is what we have from him. And of course, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. There's nothing trifling or foolish about that. So when God comes into your midst, you best know it's a serious matter. Again, that's what this verse is referring to. So again, since we are not our physical bodies, then our bodies can be considered veils from behind a veil that cover the reality of who we are. This is to say that I can see your body while you're alive, and I can also see it in the coffin when you're laying there dead. But I cannot see your mind in any case. I can't see your mind when you're living, and I can't see your mind when you're gone. And by the way, we call the body the remains. We don't call the body you in the ground. So that also gives us an indication that we're beyond our bodies. We're more than body. Well, further, the awareness that we are not our bodies enables us to know that we are thinking beings. And we know that the fact that I can think about what I want to think about brings up the essence of life. So you have your mind, but you have something before your mind. This is the essence of life, or the spirit that Jesus was referring to when he said, worship God in spirit. So all of this is why we never worship the human form or person. So for those who are saying that we worship Master Farrakhan Muhammad, you don't have your facts straight. In fact, we rarely even use the word worship. There's other words like serve and obey and submit that Allah requires. That's true worship, obedience, and the Holy Quran says that. Now, we pay tribute to the originator because we exist as persons through his essence, the essence of life. The body returns to the earth when we die, but the essence of life in the mind does not go in the ground. And that's who we really are. Now, in his translation of the Holy Quran, Maulana Muhammad Ali provides the following commentary on the verse we just read, verse 51 of Surah 42. He states, this verse shows how Allah speaks to a person or makes known his will to him. 3 modes of this are stated. By way, it's an Arabic word. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but you can read it as I'm trying to say it. This is a word generally translated as meaning revelation. The primary significance of the word way is, however, a hasty suggestion which enters the hearts of the prophets and of the righteous. And in his commentary, he says this is the way that the mother of Moses, Allah communicated to her. The second mode of Allah speaking to his servants is that he speaks from behind a veil. A scene is shown as in a vision carrying a deeper significance, or words are heard by the person spoken as from behind a veil. Now, of course, we know in the Holy Quran, Abraham received a vision, and that vision told him he should sacrifice Ishmael. And he went on to do that based on that vision. The third form of revelation is that in which a messenger, an angel, is chosen by Almighty God to deliver his message to the person to whom he wishes to speak. Such is the revelation of the Quran as granted to the prophet, being recited by Jibril, the angel Jibril. Now, these 3 modes naturally relates to how Master Farrakhan Muhammad communicates with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. And this is how he directs their actions as well as the actions of any person he chooses. Therefore, the communication between Allah and his Messiah occurs in the mind of the Messiah. It may be initiated through a hasty suggestion. Well, what's a suggestion? Here, a suggestion is an idea that is implanted in the mind of another by word or by some kind of other influence, some action. And it influences their conduct, their thinking. Well, way is like a spark that triggers a discourse, seemingly within oneself. However, it calls up a dialogue between the person receiving it and the one communicating it. This thought sent by Allah to his Messiah may be in response to questions the Messiah has raised, or it may be Allah's guidance of his Messiah. Now, an inspired communication is not confined to a suggestion. Why would it be? Allah can communicate whatever is necessary, including a commandment to perform a specific task, such as a divine command to take a specific woman as a wife. Now, here we must also note that the fulfillment of the messianic prophecies is the prevailing context of the interactions among Master Fard Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, and myself. So I'm not teaching you something out of theory or speculation. I'm teaching you what I know, in fact, is the reality, because I'm part of this reality. So Allah willing, in our next message, we intend to go further into the fulfillment of the messianic prophecies as it relates to the domestic life of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. May Allah continue to bless you and your families, and thank you for listening. Assalamu alaikum.